Alrighty, thank you everyone. We'll make a start if everyone's happy. It's fantastic to see such an amazing crowd here tonight. Welcome everyone to the PMCWA Careers Expo. My name's Chris Wilson. I'm a geriatrician and I'm a medical advisor for PMCWA. I'll start tonight as always by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and I'd like to show respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and also extend that respect to any Aboriginal people here in the room today. So it's my job to sort of briefly give you an outline of what we're going to get up to in the next hour. The aim here is to give you an idea about what you need to do in order to become an intern in WA Health next year. So these are our outcomes. We want to make sure that you've got a correctly structured CV, that you address the selection criteria, which often causes people a little bit of stress getting through. But we really want to make sure that you give yourself the best shot you can at getting to your preferred hospital next year. So tonight, the outline of things will be that, firstly, Caitlin Oversty, our Senior Program Officer at the PMCWA, will give you an overview of the application process. After that, Dr. Renee Long, a postgraduate Year 2 resident at Fiona Stanley Hospital, currently doing ED in Northam, will give you a rundown of how to approach the CV and responses to the selection criteria. And then you're going to hear briefly from all of these people out the front who are our directors of training at the various hospitals around town. So from the WA Country Health Service, Professor Graham Maguire is here. From St John of God Midland, we have Professor Tim Bates. Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, Professor Fiona Lake. Royal Perth Hospital, Dr Caroline Rhodes. Joondalup Health Campus, Dr Atula Karu. And Fiona Stanley Hospital, Dr Rory Trauber. After that, there'll be a panel discussion. So we'll take any questions at the end, so hold them tight, and then we'll run around with a microphone to ask them at the end. This is being recorded, and so if you want to listen back to things afterwards, or for your mates who are interstate who are interested, you'll be able to get that afterwards. So on that note, I'd like to hand over to Caitlin, who will run you through the process.
Thanks everyone for coming along, and thanks for the introduction, Chris. So you should all be aware of some of these dates that are up on the screen behind me. These dates are set nationally, so if you do have any intention of applying for an internship outside of WA, if you really must, they'll be the same dates. So for WA, we're opening the applications at 12 noon, and we're also closing them at 12 noon, just to make it a bit easier for you. And then offers will commence nationally from the 14th of July. These are just the rural offers that will start first. So if you have applied for an internship at WA Country Health Service, that's when you'll receive that offer. And then on Wednesday, the 16th of July, that's when the Metro offers commence as well. These are some important websites that you'll be getting familiar with very soon. Jobs WA is the website that has every job really for WA Health listed on there. But MedCareers WA is the website that you're going to get really familiar with. This is where you'll be applying for your internship, but also your resident medical officer positions and future jobs in your career. And our website, of course, we put a lot of work into it to make sure that there's a lot of information to make this process a lot easier for you. So when the applications open, there is an application guide on there, which I'd recommend you going on and having a look at as well. This is what Jobs WA looks like. So you can either search for the intern vacancy on Jobs WA, just in that little search bar at the bottom, and it will come up with an advert that looks a bit like this. When you get to this advert, there will be a link to MedCareers WA, so make sure you click on that link to be redirected to MedCareers WA. You'll see the intern vacancy on here, so make sure you click on to here, and that's where you'll start your application. So when the applications do open, I'd encourage you to have a look at this website pretty quickly, and then you'll be able to click through and understand what the steps of the application look like. It does take a bit of time, so I'd encourage you not to leave it to the last minute. And there's also some documents that you can prepare in advance, which Renee will be talking about a little bit later. I just want to highlight as well your email that you're going to use for MedCareers WA. I understand that you're students now, and your university email is probably used quite a bit now, but I'd encourage you to think about perhaps a different personal email, because you're not going to be students forever, and this will follow with you as you go through your career. The intern advert will look a little bit like this. So this talks about the different hospitals that you'll have that you can do your internship at, and some of the duties that are expected of you as well. This is a handy document to have printed out when you're creating your responses to your selection criteria, and it will also have the questions of the selection criteria listed in here as well. So some of the attachments that you can start preparing now include your CV. You will need an official copy of your academic transcript. We do also accept equals, which some of the universities use now. Evidence of citizenship, you might as well get that all sorted now. If you do need to do an English language test and you haven't booked one in, I'd recommend doing that now. And more information about that's within the English language standard. And if you would like to do a cover letter, it is an optional document, but you might as well start looking at what you want to include in that now as well. I'm going to hand you over to Renee now, who's going to go into a bit more detail about the CV itself and how to structure your response to the selection criteria.
Cool. So hi everyone, I'll start with the cover letter. So like Caitlin said, it is optional, but it can be quite handy if you're wanting to specify things like working at a rural site, particularly if you want to work at the same site as a partner, any particular reasons for applying at that particular hospital that you're after, and if you're wanting to work part-time, that's your place to specify it as well. It's one single side A4 piece of paper, so it doesn't have to be long. Keep it quite succinct. I used mine to list why I wanted to do a rural term. That's one of the more common things that people tend to use it for. It's good to start it with something generic like to the selection panel, to whom it may concern, a short introduction paragraph as to why you're writing the letter. Expand on those reasons and sign it off with a sort of call to action summary of why you've written it, and sign off, sincerely, thank you for your consideration, all those standard things. Your CV is 2 to 3 pages long. This is probably the easiest thing to start with and will really help with writing your selection criteria, because you can very easily dot point everything that you've done and then use those to use those as a guide for your selection criteria later on. Yeah, that's, like I said, best to start with that one because then you can use them for your selection criteria. Start with personal details, like in any CV. I'm sure a lot of you have applied for jobs before. Your education, any other jobs you've done. If you've done any research or publications or presentations, they're really great things to include. Any other courses that you've done, if you've done, ultrasound courses or extra radiology learning, for example. Suture nights, all those sorts of things that get run through unis. If you're a member of any organisation like the AMA, you can pop that one in. Any volunteer work and involvement with things like WOMS or MSAND or other med school committees. You can also include any other extracurricular activities or interests if you think that they're relevant or kind of show more about who you are as a person. But all the other stuff is probably the more important things to pop in there. It's important to note that your grades aren't a deciding factor in what hospital accepts you, at least not in WA. You can include it though, particularly if you've got high grades, it does look quite good, but it's not an essential thing to have in there. Keep it sort of short, succinct and concise. Makes it a lot nicer for everyone to read. Everyone on the selection panels is reading a lot of documents, so the shorter it is, the better. And make sure you, like with everything, proofread it, write it check it in a week's time, make sure you've not made any spelling mistakes or left anything out. The selection criteria, this is probably the one that everyone's most terrified to write. Each of them, except for criterion 1, is maximum 500 words. Criterion 1 is just answer the question. You don't need to expand extensively on it. In general, keep your answers concise and succinct. This also shows that you've got good communication skills, as well as, again, makes it easier to read. And demonstrate with examples why you meet the requirements to work at the hospital that you're after. This is why it's really handy to start with your CV, because then you can use all of those examples in here and expand on them. Essentially, your selection criteria is your place to demonstrate why you should work at the hospital that you want to work at. So highlight your strengths, what you've done, or your skills. Try and sell yourself. Some tips on how to phrase things is be positive in general. Don't say things like, my experience is this is limited. Your experience is this. Focus on the positives, how you can grow, things that you've actually achieved. Review what you've written. Like I said with your CV, write it, start early, write it in a week's time, have a look at it again, edit it as you need. Don't leave them to the last minute, because that's when you miss things and make mistakes and things don't look as neat as they can. It's also a really helpful thing to review it as if you're someone on the selection panel. You're reading it and it sounds like you'd want to employ yourself. That's a good sign that you've done a good job. One of the handy things that you can use to help structure your selection criteria is the STAR model. So situation, what, for example, you've worked on a team on the neurology ward and you had a difficult patient situation. What the task was, so again, expand on what happened. What did you do? How did you do it in that scenario? Maybe it was you had to help break bad news. Less common in a medical student scenario, but. And then what was the outcome? So this is an example. So previously worked on the pediatric neurology team. During one of my shifts, I had to consent the parents of a child for an urgent procedure. I demonstrated to the consultant that I had adequate knowledge about why we're performing the procedure, what could happen if we didn't perform it. Spoke to the parents of the child about these issues under time pressures, using clear language and avoiding jargon, so demonstrating communication skills, active listening, and then in summary, you were organised, demonstrated good time management skills, and knowledge of the procedure. So overall, some tips, like I said, start early. Brainstorm some things now, write your resume now. Makes writing these selection criteria a lot easier. Submit your complete application on time. Make sure you've not left anything out. It's a stressful time, so it's easy to miss things. Make sure you've checked all the page and word limits. Don't accidentally write a 3-page cover letter. It's 1 page. And make sure, this was a thing that I actually didn't know until just before this, is that when answering your selection criteria, make sure, sometimes it can get a bit repetitive. You tend to use the same examples for multiple things. Each question is reviewed by different people. So don't answer it assuming that the person has read the one before. You will use the same examples a lot, particularly if, say, you've done a committee role. They demonstrate leadership and communication skills and all those things that are really easy to use for different selection criteria. Make sure your formatting, headings, dot points, spelling, all of that looks really good. Again, shows that you're good at communication, you've got attention to detail. That's all the little things. And again, be clear, succinct, to the point. That's why I always recommend to people to start early. Even if your first draft is rubbish, put it aside, come back to it in a week, and you can always edit it. Don't leave it to the last minute and race through it. Cool. Good luck.
I hope you were all taking some notes there. It's really important to get a good application together, especially if there's a hospital that you really want to get to. It can be a competitive process at times, and although we do wish we could give you all your first preference hospitals, it's not always the case. Unfortunately, there might be more applicants than there are available positions, so having a very strong application is going to work in your favour. So internship offers. I did mention when they start. You have 48 hours to accept them. That means both the WA offer, you have 48 hours to accept, and anywhere else in Australia. That is the national rule. That's not our rule. The offers will be sent via email. So whatever email that you use with MedCareers WA, that's where your offer will get sent to. And you'll also be accepting them or declining them on MedCareers. And there is also the late vacancy management process, which runs later in the year. So that's really for people that have applied everywhere and haven't received an offer at all. That kicks in later on in the year. That's a different process. All of you will get a 3-year contract, although Midland, they offer the 2-year contract. Both have really good job security, so that's good. That's something that the AMA fought for a couple of years ago. So it wasn't just the 1-year contract. You had a couple more years of job security there. It doesn't mean that you're going to be an intern for 3 years. Once you finish your internship requirements, which generally is 12 months, it can be longer if you're part-time or perhaps you've had extended leave. You will progress when you finish your internship requirements. You will also get the opportunity about this time next year to apply for a different hospital if you'd like to change health service providers within that contract period. So the late vacancy management process that I was talking about just before, that opens later in the year in November, and it goes through till March the following year. So it is quite a long process. And it just really means that if there's any hospitals with vacancies that pop up later in the year, perhaps it could be someone doesn't end up starting, then they have a process to be able to offer. And if you meet all the requirements to be a part of that particular recruitment process, you'll be contacted by the national team. So that's not managed by us, that's by a national team. And you don't have to do a separate application. So when you get your offers, that will happen from July, you'll then get your contracts from the health services. So our job as PMCWA, we just do the recruitment behind the scenes and organise the application process. But the hospitals, they're the ones that are actually assessing your applications, organising your contracts and liaising with your term allocations. So you'll get all of that information, your contracts, new starter info, a list of the terms that you can complete later on in the year. This is just an example of a term matrix. So this is this is real Perth's one, isn't it? So you'll see here each line, that's an accredited line from PMCWA. So that means we've given it a tick to say that it meets the requirements that you'll need to be able to be considered for general registration. And yeah, you then just rank which ones you want to do from, is yours 1 to, there's a couple, yeah, about 1 to 13. You just rank your preferences and they'll do their best to get you the rotations that you want. Sometimes it works out. It just, again, it depends how many people are wanting that same line item that you're wanting as well. There is some hospital-specific information sessions. You can take a photo of this if you'd like. Otherwise, you can find it on our website. On our website, we've also got all the registration links, so just an easy way for you to find that information and register to each of them. I'd recommend coming along to them if there's something that you really want to know about a hospital and you want a bit more of a deep dive. You will have the opportunity to chat to everyone at the expo after this session as well. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of that. If you have any questions, we will have a panel very shortly after we hear from each of the health sites, but you can also contact PMC at any time. When the application guide is available, which is when applications open, I'd really recommend having a look at that first. I guarantee your question is probably answered in there. And if you have any technical difficulties with MedCareers itself, that's with the MedCareers WA team, and you can find their details on their website. Okay, we'll start the panel. Good luck, everyone.
Okay, so now to the bit where you get to hear from the sites themselves. We're going to start with WA Country Health, so I'll ask Professor Maguire to come up. I think we've got your slides. There you go.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's good to be first or bad, so I'll try to make it memorable. So, Graham Maguire, I'm a general physician. Just a couple of brief points about WA Country Health Service and our internships. So we have 35 WACS employed interns, and at any one time 33 interns on secondment from Metro. So that you can sort of see about 160 interns in Metro can also spend at least one or more terms with WACS. But I really want to talk to you about being a WACS employed intern. So we have WACS employed interns across our 4 intern employing sites, which is from Broome, Geraldton, Bunbury, Busselton and down to Albany. So a great range of sites. And these other stars just refer to where we also have interns on secondment from the Metro hospitals. Great thing about being a WACS intern is you get to work for WACS and live in amazing places. So the other great thing is that we provide you with accommodation support. You get help with accommodation, you get an accommodation subsidy. We help you and give you a relocation allowance, and we support you with centralised intern orientation in Perth before you go out to your sites to complete your orientation in that important first week. Seconded interns get lots of love and toys as well. I won't use it too much, but it's not about an internship with WACS, it's about a career with WACS and in the bush, and we provide lots of opportunities to use that 3-year contract to progress to some great RMO and then vocational training. We have the great thing about being a WACS employed intern is that you get preferential treatment to where you go for your 2nd and 3rd year. So you can start in Albany and end up in Broome and then go to Bunbury. So you get to see this amazing state, and you're the first cab off the rank when we're looking at recruiting our RMOs and where they go. You can become a physician with WACS, you can do emergency medicine training, you can do intensive care training, psychiatry, the list goes on and on. Okay, so how do you apply for a WACS rural internship? The most important thing is you select WACS as your preferred employing site, okay? The second thing is you rank the sites. Remember those 4 sites that I mentioned, Broome, Geraldton, Bunbury and Albany, from most to least preferred. A cover letter is not optional for us because we want to hear why you want to come to WACS. So we want to hear what your link to rural healthcare delivery. We want to hear about, did you grow up there? Did you go on holidays there? We want to hear about if your partner or someone else important is at that site, why that site's important to you. And just add anything else. Couple of myths: you don't have to grow up in the bush to become a WACS intern. You don't have to go to rural clinical school to become a WACS intern, okay? We have lots of people who have spent a lot of their medical training in the city who make fantastic docs with WACS. Just make sure you have that cover letter because we read that cover letter to actually figure out why you're a good fit for us. Further information, come out and talk to our friendly staff at the stall, and or if you want to scan the QR code. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you, Graham. Next from Midland, we have Tim Bates. Thanks, Tim.
Chris, thank you very much, and thanks to the organisers. Can I say at the outset, I represent Midland, but I can tell you that everybody sitting in this room to my right will offer you a fantastic internship. So I don't want anybody sitting here tonight thinking, oh, if I go somewhere, I'll get a great internship and somewhere else a terrible one. So everybody will get a great internship. So why Midland? We kind of think of ourselves as a bit like Aldi, better, different. but not cheap. You'll get paid as much as government interns. So look, we started our own intern program in 2020 with 12 interns. Next year, I'm pleased to announce we'll get to 24 interns. And those of you doing maths will know that 5 doesn't go into 26. So we do things slightly different. We only have 4 terms for our interns, each of 13 weeks. So it gives you a longer term, and we have no terms that are not great. So you have a longer term to do good things in your term, know your team, be part of the team, and get the most out of your team. So when the government interns are changing at 10 weeks and you think, I'd love to stay here a bit longer, just think if you're at Midland, you did get to stay longer. So everybody in Midland gets medicine or acute geriatrics or surgery or an ED. Everybody gets all that straightforward, straight up internship with great generalist experience. And then you get 1 option term. So you can't do 4 option terms. We have had that question. Can I do paediatrics, O&G, stroke and ICU? No, you have to do at least the other 3 terms. But you can see the option terms on the screen. You get to do 1 of those for 13 weeks. Next year, we'll have a new term in psychiatry, which has been approved by our friends at PMC WA. That looks like a fantastic term and most likely will include community-based psychiatry and CL psychiatry. So if you're looking to do psychiatry, you will get genuine psychiatric experience in that term. Each of our interns go to another St John's hospital, so you will go to Subiaco or Murdoch for 1 term. It may be 2. We're just looking at our matrices at the moment, but at least 1 term per hospital. And again, 13 weeks beats 10 weeks. More is better. So, and Midland's the only place that does that, or St John of God Healthcare. It also makes your leave easier. Now, I want to address a couple of myths, because we hear lots of myths out there about Midland, and I'll address them quickly because I haven't got much time. Firstly, you get paid the same. The St John's EBA I negotiated with the AMA and St John of God Healthcare. It is the same to the cent, exactly the same. So if you're worried about pay, you're fine with us. Most of our sites have free parking. We have more salary packaging, which is a way of paying less tax legally as opposed to paying less tax illegally than government sites. So you may actually earn more at Midland, but I'm not allowed to say that. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for the same for everybody, everywhere else. We're looking for interesting people that will make a great contribution to our organisation. Smart, good, interesting, better. Because you will contribute to the fabric of our hospital and our organisation. Marks count, but the difference between a top mark and a bottom mark is about 3 or 4% in the total mark. So it's not all about marks. Like Graham, we would suggest writing a cover letter very, very strongly. I don't think we've ever had an intern get through without a cover letter. So what are you worried about? You've thought about Midland? Why not? Okay, well, a few other myths. Midland's far away and scary. I've lived in Midland my whole life, most of my whole life. I did have to come to uni for 6 years. I got out of Midland. Midland's a great place full of really interesting people with lots of genuine stories to tell you and make you a better doctor. There's crime everywhere. Don't worry. If you go to Royal Perth, if you go to Fish, there's train lines everywhere. Same to Joondalup as well. So don't worry about crime at Midland, okay? Work where you're happy. If you're worried it's a long way away, we're 3 k's further from the CBD than Fish is, and we're 10 k's closer. So we're not much further. We are a long way from the beach, and we can't change that. I'll miss out on training. If I don't go to that big hospital, I won't get the training program I want. We've got people in surgical, RACP, ED, GP, anaesthetics, psychiatry, everywhere. So you won't miss out on training. You'll get well trained, so you'll be competitive. The other myth we've got is if I apply to Midland, I'll miss out. It's popular and lots of people apply and everyone misses out. Most years we've been 1 or 2 over or 1 or 2 under. If you apply to Midland, you will probably get that job and you're a 75% chance of getting the rotation that you're asking for, like your first option. So if you want to come to Midland, sell yourself, we're interested in you, be interesting, you will probably get a great job and you'll have a great experience. And look, if you miss out, the other hospitals are fantastic too. So thanks for your consideration. We'll see you in the exhibition.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we're going to go to Charlie Gardner's. We'll ask Fiona Lake to come up. Thank you, Fiona.
So I'm here to sell Sir Charles Gardner, but in fact, exactly as Tim said, you've got a world-class education right now, and you're going to have a world-class education in the next stage of your training, no matter where you go. I suspect what you're going to be influenced by how far you are from the hospital, whether your mates are going there, probably the hospital health check, which the data has been gathered and collection ends this week, so you'll hear about that. But many of those things will influence you, but hopefully you'll also think about some other things. So why Sir Charles Gardner? Tim said you have genuine stories up there. We have genuine stories too. Everybody thinks we live in the western suburbs, but Charlie's is an interesting place because it has the highest rate of admissions from ED. Because patients are sicker and patients are older, but it has a different spread to the other places. We think we provide excellent clinical care and innovation in that care. The work conditions, the JMO manifesto, which was brought in by Georgia Skander last year, focused on getting you your leave and getting you your overtime, and that's worked very well, and I think that's given us a big tick. Education, research, support, training, research opportunities. We sit at QE2, and so there's an awful lot of research going on, and focus on the wellbeing of all staff. In fact, you could probably apply that to everybody. We do think there's a great variety of terms. You can also do gynecology, neonates. There's a term over at Perth Children. We have psychiatry, and the link in with WACS I think is really important. We have a very good BPT program if you're interested in physician training, and also Jonathan Fu, a surgeon, has set up a basic surgical program for people who are into PGY1s and 2s who think they might want to be a surgeon, and it takes them through those early years. However, we also very strong on general practices. In fact, I think probably the most important discipline, and we make sure people who are interested in that area get mentors and get connected. I'm just going to make some general comments about applications. Make sure your CV's up to date, well formatted, no typos. Make sure it's set for the intern, not the job that you're applying for on the holidays. Strong clinical referees. If you're absolutely fixed on a hospital, it is quite nice if you've got somebody from that hospital, so the name is recognised and they have a reputation and they'll give you a good referees report. If you're applying more broadly to a range of hospitals, then you might have referees from a couple of places. We agree you need a cover letter, and that kind of is a roadmap for us. What makes you stand out from the crowd, and it gives us a roadmap of what you're really interested in, which we will then see in your CV and in your application. Answer the question succinctly. I think there used not to be a 500-word limit, and God, it was awful. So, but just, you don't have to say too much. You don't have to repeat things, and give good examples which demonstrate what makes you a good doctor. Academic performance is important. If you've done really well, gloat on it. God, put it in there. Point it out that you've done very well. What don't make your application too long. Somebody has to read it. Don't duplicate information. So under 2, 3 and 4, you'll give examples. Don't draw it from the same area. Try and give different examples in each one, and don't repeat exactly what's in the CV. Avoid examples from too long ago. Very nice that you're ducks of primary school, but, really probably not relevant at this stage. Sometimes some examples can get too far from being a doctor, and so try and make it so it really is relevant. And spell check. It's a really simple one that, kind of like, oh, God, this person can't even use spell check. So any questions? I'll leave it there, but no matter where you go, you're going to have a great training. But yeah, Charlie's is greater.
Thanks, Fiona. All right, so next up, Caroline Rhodes from Royal Perth. Thanks, Caroline.
Hello, I'm a geriatrician and the Director of Postgraduate Medical Education at Royal Perth Bentley Group. And it's a really exciting time for you all, so I'm really happy to be able to speak to you. And I'd echo the other comments. I was an intern at Royal Perth, but I think I've worked at all the health services. Well, Tim's was the old Swan Districts Hospital when I was a trainee. And it is important to rotate through your career and training because you get different experiences, you see different patient populations. So while you're making a choice for next year or potentially the next 2 to 3 years, there's always that flexibility later in your career. But here I am to tell you about maybe why you'd consider coming to Royal Perth Bentley Group. So we're, I think, the oldest tertiary hospital. We have a really long foundation and culture in teaching and training doctors. We have a really busy ED, which is really supportive, and actually one of our highest ranked rotations in terms of the feedback we get from interns about having a really supported experience there. I think one of our points of difference is that we have the state trauma unit and we have intern rotations in the trauma unit, which again, we get great feedback on about the teaching and culture there. I think we've got a really diverse patient population. We've got a large number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander patients, as well as a lot of patients with English as a second language. I did a ward round at Bentley Hospital this morning where my inpatients are, and I think probably half my inpatient load of about 15 was either Aboriginal or English as a second language. And we have strong ties with WACS. As an intern myself, I went to Kalgoorlie, and we send interns to Kalgoorlie, Bunbury and Port Hedland, and again get really great feedback from those rotations. We have a strong basic physician training pathway that you can enter from PGY3, but from intern year we run a lot of hands-on workshops. We have a basic surgical program, which was the first in the state, started several years ago, which if you're interested in that, we have a lot of surgical subspecialties you can do. And we have a really great JMO society. They're really involved. I think we've really flattened the hierarchy, so we meet up with them, myself and the Deputy Director of Clinical Services, Claire Fellingham, to discuss what matters most for you guys and what's important, including things like access to education and your leave. And I think it's really great working in the city. Yes, there's the things Tim alluded to, but there's really great cafes, coffee around. You can join the social club, which has access to a swimming pool, gym. We've got the famous Milligan's Bar, which is reopened on Friday nights. And it's easy to get to. We don't have car park woes, and easy access with public transport. So I think we're looking for similar things. I think a cover letter, again, is helpful, but I think it's helpful to demonstrate why you want to come to us, what do you understand about the kind of work we do, and that learning is central for you. We're not going to offer you, it's not going to be a not busy year, but you'll learn a lot through that. And I think we've made really great changes, again, to culture about access to your leave and teaching in the last few years. And we really value professionalism and excellence. And again, if you think about that and how you could demonstrate examples in your selection criteria. A lot of our patients are from very vulnerable communities, and again, understanding that. I guess a few other things on the application. So we read a lot and it gets quite tiring. I did have a few who used AI, but then didn't edit the AI. It doesn't look that good and doesn't look that professional. So just have a think again and read it, and maybe read it again the next week and just make sure your language is how you would write. Because when you read a lot of these, you can tell, I think, what's authentic and what's not. And that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. Next on the list, we've got Joondalup Health Campus and Atula Karru. Now, I think when you click it, it should start your...
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you guys and tell you about why JH is one of the best sites we train. Let me see. So we are slightly different to some of these guys because we're one of the largest hospitals that has got a complex arrangements of public and private interns working with us. We've got about 60 interns on our site, and some of them are recruited through the public system, through the normal recruitment process. We are a large hospital up north, if you haven't travelled from the city or from the Midland. It is reachable with the hospital in terms of a large access to a big ED, which has got 100,000 presentations a year. And that allows us to give you a very broad complex of rotations to choose from, because we have patients coming from prenatal to palliative care. So we can offer you rotations on site, including pediatrics, neonatal care, ICU rotations for you, and also extend your experience with us with the BPT surgical training, as well as other extended rotations that we can offer you and teaching. We offer you protected teaching. That means it's protected, and we also feed you during that time if possible. And that's one of the important things we do. And as a site, we have a electronic access throughout the hospital with an intranet, and you get all your education material and teaching material on your handset with the Med app. So we have easy parking, it's free parking, and we have special training pathways. And also we're proud to have a 30% of our cohort of JMOs as IMGs. We have a special recruitment path through the IMGs. So in a sense, we are a big hospital that are growing and expanding, and we would like you to come up and join us as interns next year to see how you come and improve your clinical skill set with us. And come and see us at the booth outside and talk to us about what rotations we can have. We have a full spectrum of rotations, including rotations to wax as a site that you can go. Thank you very much. See ya.
Thanks, Atula. Okay, so last but not least, we'll ask Rory to come up from Fiona Stanley. Thank you.
Nice one. All right. How are you guys? You all right? So I'm here to talk to you about SMARS. We're obviously a pretty big health service south of the river. We're largely, the bulk of us, I guess you're going to spend your time at Fiona Stanley Freo. We're the largest employers of intern in the States. So next year we're going to be getting 135 of you. So it's a big intern family, right? And as part of that, as part of being a new health service, we're really, really conscious that we're new and we're growing, we're developing, okay? And the most important thing is we're here to listen, okay? So things have changed so differently in the last year. And a good example of that is kind of how we approach our intern matrix. So we're always looking to either beef up areas that we think are sounding really good or add in new experiences for you guys. So this year we added in, and this was actually on the back of the Med Student Night in June. One of your predecessors came to us and said, it'd be really good if you guys offered peds. So we went, yeah, all right, we'll do it. So we had our first peds intern this year, overwhelming success. I'm a neonatologist, so I thought I'm not letting them pediatric people nick the fun. So we've got a neonate. So it's the only place in town you can do tertiary neonates. And that's amazing, right? They're going to continue, and we're adding to peds. So there'll be 10 opportunities to do pediatrics next year and a single intern. We also added in, because I thought then the O&G mob might get a bit jealous. So we gave them one as well. And that's an overwhelming success, okay? So you can do tertiary O&G all in one site. We added in palliative care last year. Again, we're continuing that. And for next year, we're going to be adding in burns, because we're the state burn service, and you'll get to meet Helen Douglas and Professor Fiona Wood. We're adding in hyperbaric medicine as well. We're the only place that does endocrinology. So we're pretty diverse, and we're adding in respiratory, which then means you can do sleep medicine. Coupled with that, we do have wax opportunities. So we go to Broome, we go to Albany, and we're at the moment in discussions with the Department of Health to get Peel recognised as a rural centre as well. Like I said, we're here to listen. There's been a lot of myths, or not really myths actually, I'll correct that. We've done a lot of things not very well in the past few years. And a lot of that will be, centred around leave and around overtime. And a lot of that has changed now. So we're coming up to a year birthday of our doctor support unit. And we're approaching basically getting about 90% of everyone's leave in their desired time. Who do we want? We want you. We want you brilliant people, all right? You can clearly tell I didn't go to med school here, and if I tried, I wouldn't have got in, all right? You lot are brilliant, brilliant people who are going to be brilliant, brilliant doctors. And put simply, we just want every single one of you in the room. Because we take 135, you put us first choice, it's almost dead cert you will get us, or your job with us. We want vibrant people who are prepared to get stuck in and are willing to contribute to this growing culture and have ideas about how you want to see the hospital develop. okay? And like I said, we're here to listen. Education-wise, you will all get your Friday teaching. Some of you will probably have witnessed our paid teaching. So that's been going great guns now. So we pay RMOs who want to come. So we've done 130 of them have been paid for the privilege of coming in, and they get breakfast too, although I'm not publicly allowed to say that because apparently we're not allowed to give food, but we do. We're also just keen, we're starting up a new teaching session with Renee, and Renee leads our SMOS, so our Stanley Medical Officer Society, and we're heavily interlinked with them. And essentially we just listen to what SMOS want and we try and deliver it. So Renee came the other week and said, we really want to be involved in bedside teaching. So we're going to set up an ad hoc sign of hot bedside teaching series that hopefully if you come to us, you'll be part of. I think that's about it. Just come, oh no, yes, don't. Come have a chat, simple as that, and we can talk you through about what we offer. But hopefully we'll see you soon. Good luck with everything.
Thank you, Rory. Look, I'm hoping it's fairly obvious to you guys now that we're blessed in WA with a group of amazing and dynamic medical educators. So can you please give them all one more round of applause? And as always with these things, we're running a bit tight on time, but we do have time for some panel Q&A. So Miriam's going to run a mic. Has anyone got any burning questions? You can start at the front, yes.
Thank you everyone for your time. I'm just wondering, once you've been given an internship position, on what basis do you give the term preferences? Is that something in our applications, or how do you decide?
So I can answer from Royal Perth Bentley Group. So once you get if you've accepted your offer, you'll then get your contract. Then you get our intern matrix, and you then preference 1 to whatever it is, and then our interns get either their first or second preference. So that would usually be confirmed maybe November-ish.
So Midland, we use your application score, so your score that ranks you to get into Midland. Then we use the same score to go to preferences, and people who usually want to come to Midland have usually identified one of the option terms that they want. So we don't worry about the matrix. It's pretty clear from your application. And again, we have a pretty high success rate of converting what you want into the option term, certainly within the first 2.
On our side, the 22 interns that we select, we'll get to select from 1 to 22. We have had success in getting at least the first 2 or 3 by the time we allocated everyone. So there is some leeway there, but we would take the marking and the ranking to sometimes decide if there's more than 2 people going for the same location. Thanks.
I guess for variation, Graham, do you want to just explain maybe how it might work in WACS?
Well, the good thing is that a couple of our sites have 5 interns. So that's the great thing about WACS. You're a small group. We know who you are. And so everyone does the same matrix, just in a different order. It's only really Albany and Bunbury-Busselton, and the only real differentiation is probably Albany. Everyone pretty much does the same, and in Bunbury-Busselton, about half the people get an opportunity to go down to Busselton for a rotation. That's about it for us, so it's pretty simple.
Did see some other hands floating up. Right up the back. Miriam can get her steps in.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for coming down, having a chat. I was just wondering if there's like a document that all the leave requests, if they're publicised for each hospital, like the approvals and that kind of thing.
The leave processes?
Yeah, and all the approvals.
Yep.
In our hospital, leave is submitted to the clinical services as a digital format, and usually if it's submitted on time, they get submitted to us to actually consider. How does that tie in with your requirements of completion? Because sometimes you might take leave on an extended time on a critical term. If you did that leave completely taken out, you might not fill the criteria for your completion. So there is some vetting process that occurs through PGM before your leave is approved. So we sort of make sure that the leave is compatible with your training finishing Otherwise, we'll have a chat to you. So the approval process of leave is that if you ask for it, we get it. But there is a little bit of consideration to see that do you actually know what you're asking for? If you do this, you might not finish the internship on time.
Yeah, so it's probably important that you do go back and have a look at the the guidelines which are available on the PMC website in terms of what is required in order to successfully complete your internship. So there are some rules around how many weeks you must complete. So that's the sort of framework within, or under which all of the hospitals will work. The individual process is probably best to go and chat to them at the booths afterwards if you want to sort of know the nitty-gritty, because they'll be roughly the same, but there'll be some slight variation depending on the site.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. I had a question just about, for all these hospitals other than Midland, it's a 3-year contract and you're an intern for the first year. What does second and third year look like? Are you still attached to that hospital, and do you select your rotations?
I mean, it is a fabulous system, okay, for many reasons. So like Caitlin said, I think none of us know what life is complicated, right? And you get ill, you have holiday, whatever, right? And so I think the first thing is that you shouldn't feel pressured. And actually, when you fast forward into the future, and I was saying this to our intern group at the end of last year, sort of when we were coming to it, and some people were going to have to continue into this year. In my recent sort of CV applications, I almost had to scrub my intern jobs off. It was almost like they didn't exist anymore. So when you come to your consultant jobs, no one cares whether you did a 15-month internship or a 12-month or a 24-month, right? It doesn't matter anymore. So that's the first thing, is that it gives you amazing job security from that. And you can just take your time and deal with what life throws at you, okay, whilst also just getting through your intern requirements. So for us, yes, you get a 3-year contract at South Metro. You get 3-year intern year, and then you roll into being an RMO. And then you basically then have the options as to what you want to do. So we have several career streaming options. So say, for example, you want to do PEDS, we have a selection of PEDS orientated jobs. So you would come to PEDS as an RMO, neonates as an RMO, PEDS ED as an RMO. You would do some alert after hours, and then you'd have a rural term. That career streaming has been running now for about 2.5 years in the paediatric, and has a 100% success rate of those applicants going on to formal paediatric training through PCH. So there are crit care ones, there's surgical, and equally there is the opportunity where if you just don't know, you would stay within the AMC framework, national framework, and get your certificate of completion at the end of that year. But again, you have 4 years to do that. So there's the opportunity to do it piecemeal. And equally, if you then want to leave, say, Fiona Stanley SMARS, and you want to go to North Metro, then you can do that as well. Okay, so essentially, once you get through your internship, you can then start just really enjoying the joys of medicine in terms of allowing it to have this fantastic journey and life journey, and see where it takes you, going overseas, whatever. Plenty of options.
Can I just quickly cover off the 2-year, 3-year thing? Just from Midland point of view, you're probably going, why has Midland done that? When we set up our intern program in 2019 for 2020, we polled all our interns who'd come from Royal Perth at that stage, our RMOs and students, and we decided on 2 years to give flexibility. So we know from statistics, the average intern will spend between 2 and 3 years at the intern site they start at. Now, we're going to do something else. Like Rory says, they'll change health service, change state, change something else. I need to be really clear that anybody who comes to Midland who is making good progress will have an ongoing contract. We have a deficit of junior doctors in this state, so there are heaps of jobs. So nobody should be sitting in this audience going, I'm worried about having a job longer term. That is just not a thing. If I could come back to leave, I'm going to make a general comment about leave. 5 years ago when COVID happened, leave was really, really tight across all the health services. Most health services are now, well, I can speak for Midland, are well staffed. Most of our interns last year got all their annual leave and all their PD, well, their 2 weeks of PD leave. And I suspect the other sites as well. And generally, they got their leave when they wanted it. Okay, we can't afford not to give you guys leave, particularly as RMOs, because you'll go somewhere else. So really don't worry about leave so much. I mean, I'll get the other sites maybe to speak for themselves, but certainly at Midland, most of our RMOs get the leave they want at the time they want, in the volumes they want, because things are better than 5 years ago. So don't base your judgments on the peri-COVID era where things were really, really difficult for all the health services.
In terms of our track record, I think when you look at some of the interns that have been with us, we had about 84% people staying with us for the second year for this year. So I think once you get used to a system, you can see that there's a traction for completion of your second stage of your AMC AMC criteria year 2. You realize that staying in and finishing that is probably been beneficial to you on the one side. But it doesn't mean that you can't move up or move down or move to another side. So you have the option, but like Rory said, on our side, we have streaming in your year 2. You can pick a stream of surgical-driven, undecided medical pediatrics that we offer. It's very, very popular. And also maybe ONG. So in that setting, because we can capture the full spectrum of care that some of the hospitals don't have, we have in-house interns doing pediatrics and the resident progressing to pediatrics as a resident and progressing into a career in pediatrics after that. So they can apply for that pathway by doing more than 6 months of that sometimes. Yeah. Okay.